sister's a therapist and I tell jokes. We both want to help all kinds of folks.
Hello, and welcome to My Sister's a Therapist. My name's Virginia Jones, and I'm a stand-up comedian, but my sister's a therapist.
Hello, I'm Laura Ryan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist.
We were stoked to reach 5,000 downloads this week. And, that feels good. It's a little...
It does. It also feels good to be the 715th most popular health and wellness podcast in the United States.
So thanks a lot. We're hoping to break that 500 someday. And hello to listeners from Boston, Massachusetts. I'm not exactly sure why there are so many of you, but we appreciate you.
I have an idea why there are some of you. So to the Bostonians that I know, I thank you.
So this week, I would like to talk about the battle of the sexes. I would like to talk about the battle of the bulge. This is going to become a men-directed podcast, and we will be talking exclusively about famous maritime battles. So this week, I'm talking about, the original battle of the sexes, young people may not know, it came from something. It came from
a tennis match.
Billie Jean King was the best women's tennis player in the world, and a crumpled up blowhard named Bobby Riggs challenged her, and she didn't just win. In 3 sets, she beat him every set. She whooped his ass. After the game, he said, I really underestimated you. She said later, she was like, I knew it was going to be an important moment in history because it seems ridiculous. I mean, I guess it doesn't seem ridiculous now because men still think that they could beat Serena Williams at tennis.
Right.
Unless you are a professional tennis player.
Who matches her skill set. Like, that's the other piece.
Right.
Just being a man doesn't make you better at stuff.
Right. But I think much of America was shocked that a man could beat a woman.
I also
that a
take
woman
that
could
back.
beat a man at anything. Oh.
There is one thing that because you're a man, you can do it better. That's standing while peeing.
They're really great at it. And I like that they utilize it a lot. They really get their money's worth out of God's little faucet. But no, when Billie Jean King beat Bobby Riggs, people were shocked. Like, it was a huge event because it was just a totally alien idea that a woman could beat a man at anything, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's what our whole country's built on, right?
Yeah. And it resonated throughout the years. Apparently, President Obama said, I talked to my girls about that moment, that men and women truly are equal. Like, it's still a relevant thing today.
Well, it's still a thing that we have to keep repeating.
So what I'm talking about today, and it's a very new idea. There's a lot of articles and research supporting it. I did find one article that was like, this isn't true at all. So, don't come at me. There's an increasing feeling that Generation Z men are getting more conservative as Generation Z young women become more liberal. And there's a widening chasm between these two groups. So I wanted to talk about, I guess, where that came from, what's happening, where it's going, and then how we can fix it.
Why is it? Why do we have a battle between sexes? Why are we fighting each other?
Well, one of my naive little kid ideas that I've shared during this podcast is when I was a kid growing up in the South and people were racist and homophobic and sexist, like just all the ists, I thought these people, these boomers, are going to get old and die. And the next generation, Gen X, we're going to fix this. Everyone's going to be cool.
Yeah, that was incorrect because, as I stated in our other podcast, and we'll state again, the ideas outlive the boomers. Like, I was talking to a boomer today who shared with me that his father was a member of the John Birch Society. And I said, weren't they like horribly racist? And he said, oh, no, they weren't. Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they were. That's what they did.
So his dad told him to be, just like with all things, when I actually talk to a person and we talk about our ideas, because we were talking about health insurance and how expensive it is. And so, of course, my solution is to go one direction and he wants to go the other. But the reason he wants to go the other is because he was raised by a person who was a member of the John Birch Society.
For those not in the know, it was founded, I think, as a reaction to communism, like super anti-communist.
It was a very anti-communist. Yeah, that's how it started.
But also libertarian, right underneath that, of course, racism. Like, not a great group of folks. Let's talk about how young women became super liberal. And I love Gen Z women. I don't think any of them are listening, but my God, you guys are the best.
I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for them.
Because, yeah, Gen X women were not always that keen on feminism because every generation gets told that feminism is bad. Our generation was told, well, you don't want to be a feminazi. And like,
you don't want to burn your bras.
And you don't want men not to like you. So like, yeah, we were pygmies, but we were trained by society.
I think all pygmies are trained by society, if we're honest.
So I want to talk about where women are coming from. The theory is that when Donald J. Trump was accused of sexual assault and it set fire to the hashtag Me Too movement, although Laura will tell you that Me Too was originated in 2006 by Miss Tamara Burke, but it really caught fire and women were suddenly talking about sexual assault and how it's not rare. It is not unusual and it hurt men's feelings a lot. But so this generation of women came up during hashtag Me Too and in recent years, the Dobbs decision that eliminated abortion rights in this country. Also, I want to give a shout out to France this week, which became the first country to establish abortion access as a protected right. So Gen Z women, for the most part, and of course, there's always, whatever, going to be exceptions. Don't write me about your fascist niece. Gen Z women have come up kind of agreeing that society is hostile to women. And I think Me Too is the best thing that Donald Trump ever did.
It's probably the only thing he ever did.
It's the only benefit that he's ever had for me is bringing to light that, pretty much every woman has had this experience. So like that was the big thing about Me Too for me was understanding that these are not isolated incidents. These are not specific to me. And by extension, it's not my fault.
Right.
Also, there's other things. There's TikTok. Young women are talking to each other. Young women are educating each other.
There's YouTube.
If any young woman says to themselves, wow, have women gotten kind of the short end of the stick? They can find out all kinds of things immediately.
This reminds me of gossip. It was originally godsib, which is basically a person who was your god sibling, someone who was an important member of the family. And gossip actually happened when a woman was getting ready to give birth, where basically a cluster of women would sit around her and
talk. A big old hens party. Yeah.
Right. And gossip actually wasn't considered a bad thing until men discovered that they were being excluded from it. And women were talking about them. So women were sharing knowledge about their experiences of men in situations and environments where men were not really allowed. And that was became a real problem.
Yeah. So women talking to each other is dangerous for men or dangerous for crummy men. But young men of the same age have not had there hasn't been the same stuff happening in politics that affects them so drastically, right?
Right.
Because being feminist and kind of progressive is such a female aspect that it's considered like non-masculine. And that's part of what is polarizing young men to the other side.
Right. It's giving them the ick.
Yes. But young people are giving each other the ick. So what's interesting is that young men are markedly more conservative. In the US, there's a 30-point ideological gap between young men and young women. Just Gen Z, we're talking. In the UK, it's 25 points. So South Korea had a pretty low birth rate at 0.81, which means that each woman by average is having less than one child, which is hard to carry off. But in 2022, it actually dropped to 0.78. As far as we know, the lowest it's ever been. 30% of Korean women say they never want to have kids. 60% of Korean women say they don't want kids. 55% of working women in Korea say they never want to be married.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with the 4B movement. It's a radical feminist movement that was originated in South Korea in 2019. They renounce the 4 major activities, which are sex with men, child rearing, dating men, and marriage with men. So it's 4B.
And like, you may ask, why is Korea so far afield in this? I have seen things like there's trends pushing back against the absolutely madcap beauty standards in Korea. Young women rebelling by not wearing makeup, but also young women rebelling by like putting a curler in their hair and just walking around with it, which I find wonderful and hilarious. But Korea is such an extreme because the Korean society, if you can imagine it, was even more misogynist than the US. So like when Korean women politicized and started valuing themselves, it's a huge chasm.
Yeah, because a lot of them have taken our Western beauty standards and just taken it to a whole nother level where basically you have to be 98 pounds, you have to be perfectly bone structured, you have to have no sun on your skin.
Totally,
exactly.
Yeah, totally smooth. You got
translucent.
You got a 10-step Korean skincare regimen. Yeah, it's bananas. Or back to Western society. 68% of young women think it's harder to be a woman compared to 35% of men. Okay, thanks, men.
Your opinion is definitely important and definitely warranted here.
16% of Gen Z males feel that feminism has done more harm than good.
That makes sense. I understand why they're saying that. It has done more harm for them.
And comparing to men over 60, 13%. So they are more conservative than boomers in this area.
Yeah, because I think no matter what boomer women thought or felt, they were still engaging in the 4B. be. And
Right.
I think a lot of women in this generation just are not.
I also think that one of the things that has harmed young men in this is the incredibly difficult financial situation that their generation is experiencing. In 1997, once you were 18, you were usually out of the house. And now you might be living with your folks until you are 30 years old.
Yeah.
And it's grim, especially if you are a conservative man who believes that a woman's place is in a home and the man's place is to be earning money, and you can't earn money. You think, well, I'm not worth anything to women.
If you go the alt-right super turbo conservative point of view, I mean, they don't have any value because
Right.
what is a man but a wallet and a person to protect me from bears?
And we really have to take a moment and speak out about bears in the city center.
It's a real problem. We had 4 maulings in Austin yesterday.
Of course, it is happening with polar bears. That's an even more depressing story. But an interesting thing about this is that young men are not just more conservative as dealing with feminism and women's rights. They are more conservative about immigration. They are more conservative about race stuff. It's everything. They're just drinking the Kool-Aid in every way. And the person whose Kool-Aid they're drinking is
the Tate teat. They're
So,
all on that Andrew Tate teat and they cannot get off.
So Andrew Tate and people like Andrew Tate, Dr. L.S. Evans in the UK, who's studying this question, calls them cultural entrepreneurs. They see an opportunity in young men and they use it to create an economic resentment. So the Andrew Tate model is not just that women are getting rights and advances, but it's costing men something. That the battle of the sexes, like women can't just improve their lot in life. It's damaging men.
Women having their own rights in and of itself is an affront.
Right. And so when you have these two groups of people trying to relate, a certain number of women, like they're still trying to date, they're trying to have relationships, and they are coming across these men on dating apps who actively and vocally hate women. And they're asking, what do I do with this? So when you have this divide between young men and young women, and the divide is being broadened by not just Andrew Tate, but I think Joe Rogan and a lot of YouTubers. Laura has had the experience of her young man bringing her some extremely anti-woman ideas that he's found off of YouTube. But when you already have this divide, then it just widens itself. It becomes a self-propagating thing because you have young women trying to talk to, date men their age, and the men their age are like, hate them.
It's a polar ice cap situation.
Yeah.
They're melting and floating away from one another. It is actually very difficult to pair with a person who actively hates you.
It is. It feels like a real challenge. The men of this generation are saying, oh, the term toxic masculinity is unhelpful. And the women are saying, but it does describe something. It is real.
It's describing something that is actually happening. Come up with a different term if you don't like it.
It's so challenging because I think in our generation, we had the almost feminist man, right? We had the guy who was for women's rights and thought that was cool and everything. They didn't think it affected like how much housework they should do or how they should maybe treat women in their personal lives so that women were less than.
Well, they thought that other men should pay the women that they know more money, but not them specifically.
Right. And I see this again and again in comedy where guys are like, oh yeah, women are great. They're absolutely super, but I don't want to give a woman a spot on my show. My buddy will lose out. Or more commonly, oh, that stinks that happened to you with this guy, but he's given me spots, so it would hurt me to end this relationship.
Right. I'm happy to be a feminist as long as it costs me nothing. I think it's the same as, anti-racism. I'm happy to be anti-racist until it means that I have to confront a racist and put myself in an awkward situation.
Right. Right up until the moment where I have to make a business or personal decision that I find difficult. Everything up till that, gravy.
I'm right there. I'll listen to that radio show. I'll contribute to NPR.
But also, I do believe that Gen X men thought that the world was better when women had more rights and not worse. And I guess that's always been a conservative speaking point, right?
I think that they theoretically thought it was better. But I think now that men are actively experiencing the repercussions of women having more rights, you're not going to like it. It's not fun.
Well, what we talked about in our episode on marriage is that the thing that most hurts men when women get rights is that we don't have to get married anymore, right? We choose to, but that means that a man has to bring a personality or a loving attitude or a willingness to have a good relationship to the table.
Right. And also women are allowed to pursue relationships like sugar daddy, sugar baby relationships
Right.
with men. And, if you're not rich, you don't like that.
Right. And that has always been a battle. I have never found much value in the idea that the only thing men are good for is money.
It's a very depressing reality if that's the one you're living in.
Right. And it's harmful for men. It stinks to grow up believing that all you have is your financial worth, because what if you're going through a time where you're not financially worth very much?
Well, I think I could say the same for women, right? If my only value is in my appearance, what
my
happens when I lose my look?
Right. And that's when you go middle-aged crazy and just become a cougar.
Or become a crazy cat lady who doesn't date men.
Crazy, unhappy cat lady. But yeah, our dad definitely labored under the concept that the only thing he was worth was money, but also that he didn't have to contribute anything else.
Well, yeah. And that's why he had extremely unfulfilling relationships and attempted to take his life apparently a couple of times.
We're learning things on this podcast. I do want to say, if I do have any young men listening, and why would I? You're worth more than your financial contribution. That's the thing. I think that there's a part of the male population, they see feminism as harmful because all they want is money. They're going to walk away. I want everybody to have money. I want everybody to have rights. It's not just women.
Yeah, I want everyone to be valued as a whole human being, whether they're attractive, whether they're rich, whether they're young, whether they're old, whether they're fat, whether they're thin. I want all people to have value just for the sake of their humanity.
Right. We know that I'm not a religious person, but we're all God's children. We all have the same value. The idea that one person is worth less than another is a capitalist and super flawed idea. Everybody in the world doesn't have the same value to me. My friends and loved ones are worth more to me. You see snobbery, you see economic snobbery. You're not better than anybody else. I'm not better than an unhoused person.
Have you not read a Star magazine? They are better than us. That should be the subheading. Star magazine, where stars are better than us.
What if we all opened up to the idea that you're worth the same no matter what you weigh, no matter what you earn, no matter what you look like? If you're a man walking around thinking, the only value I have is financial value, you're going to put your nose to the freaking grindstone.
So what you're telling me is that capitalism is the guy with the mask in the Scooby-Doo episode for every episode of our podcast?
Every single episode, every single EpiPen. He would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for you self-aware kids. I want to recognize men as human beings with some value, but I also want to be recognized as a human being with some value.
I think we should just go the Brave New World route and start building babies in tubes.
Just put them in a tube. It would really solve a lot of problems. You never be unemployed because whatever job you're created to do, whatever job you're going to do.
Well, and women wouldn't have to worry about, I just found this out today that in Texas, we had in 2023 a bill passed to keep us from being discriminated against while pregnant. We wouldn't have to worry about it because we'd never have to be pregnant because the baby would come out of a tube.
And you never have to worry about love relationships. They're just like having casual sex and taking drugs and going to go see the movie. So yeah, our vote is yes. Let's take this dystopic future and make it a positive thing.
Let's turn it around.
Let's turn this thing around.
Let's make it good. Let's make it good.
Yeah. And the challenging thing is that when there's this huge gap between men and women, people will say, look, well, it's women who caused it. We got to fix it. I don't know how to fix it.
I think a better question is not all men. I didn't do it. I specifically am not responsible. So you can't say anything to me about it.
I am a good person and I don't recognize that I'm part of a bigger problem just because I was born the way I was born.
Well, I have a male friend and I used to have 3 male friends, but now I think I'm down to 1 because I made another rule in my mind that if you're my friend, you actively seek out conversations with me. I don't have to reach out to you always. So I have one man who's been able to hold the torch and be equitably responsible for our relationship. And my hat's off to him. But he has a friend who has been radicalized and he lost his girlfriend because he was dating a woman who had a child, and Andrew Tate told him that women with children were terrible. So he dumped her and she moved on and she married a man and she's very happy. And this guy somehow turned it around and blamed her for it. So I think the trick is if we want to get the polar caps unmelted, I think the trick is that we have to stop pointing fingers at each other and we have to start looking at, okay, here are the problems that we face. How can we work together to develop solutions? What can I give up? What can you give up so that we can make this work?
First of all, that's a very difficult rule for men to adhere to, the rule where you have to sometimes seek me out.
This is why I have one male friend. And if you're a male and you think you're my friend, then you need to be texting and calling me more.
Yeah, because men, part of their training that they have to do any social, work at all, like they're meant to be married and partnered, and then the wife does all the social planning. I had a close male friend of mine was very depressed and nobody's calling me. And I'm like, well, you could call them. And
What? I have to call other people? Actually, I take it back. I have 2 male friends because I have another one who does text me a lot. I think if men were to do their part in bridging this gap, I think step 1 is to step away from the Andrew Tate YouTube videos. And I think it's to step away from Fox News and stop letting these inputs infiltrate your brain.
But it's very hard for men to step away from YouTube and from podcasts that confirm things about themselves, right? They're being told all the time, it's not your fault. The reason you're miserable, but it's not your fault.
Yeah, it's the confirmation bias.
Yes. I do find it very interesting that the 2 most maligned people in the population is single mothers and women with daddy issues.
Both of these things are caused directly by men. It's very tricky. I find this with lots of the ills of society. I feel like I'm becoming way more anti-government. I'm really ready for anarchy. I'm ready to just blow all this stuff up and start over again.
What are your final thoughts on this topic? You've already kind of done a good sum up. The article that I read said the way forward is to reduce or eliminate social media because it's social media's fault.
I think the things that we need to do are the things I was referring to, which is blow up the government and start over. Because really the issues that people are upset about are social ills that are caused by our extremely corrupt government and the systems that are in place in capitalism. I just don't think this system works. I don't think the 1% are here for me. I don't think that this setup is a good setup for a happy, healthy society. If you want to know what to do, it's anarchy. Let's start there.
Let's go out in the streets. I'm ready for it.
When a box of cereal is $25 and the CEO of Kellogg's is saying, eat cereal for dinner because you're poor, that's not it. This is not it.
As poor people, we already figured that out. We've already...
To telling a mother of young children that she needs to feed them a really low quality
low
food
nutrition.
Because she's poor, that's not it. This is not it. So I think that this thing is a symptom of a very corrupt, terrible society, specifically in America. I can't speak for other places, but I think that we need to just reorg everything and start over.
Yeah. An observation that I've had over the years is that when the money's free and open, when there's a boom time, politically, everyone gets a lot more laissez-faire. Yeah, men can wear a dress to work. You can stay home with your kids, do whatever you want. But when that money tightens up, everyone's butthole tight.
Well, because we need to find somebody to blame, right? And I think that in this situation, and I don't think men are to blame for every problem that's ever happened to me, maybe most of them, but not all. And I think, and I don't think that I personally am responsible for every problem a man has ever experienced. But I think it's the finger pointing that's the problem ultimately.
Yeah.
And because we're pointing fingers at each other when we should really be pointing fingers at our government
society.
And at society, the 1%, because I really feel like they are the ones who are benefiting from all of this unrest and acrimony.
Right. But I think in your day-to-day life, you don't have an interaction with the 1%, but you do have an interaction with the men and women in your workplace, the men and women at your school.
Or a sassy woman on TikTok who has a lot of ideas that I don't agree with. And I spend 32 TikTok messages back and forth telling her why she's wrong. So, Virginia, what are your final thoughts on this topic that you brought to the table?
I think possibly because we grew up Mormon, there's a part of me that is such a Pollyanna. And part of me thinks surely the men who are shooting themselves in the foot with the women of their generation again and again will get tired of it. A certain percentage of them are going to be incels forever, #redpill, but their reproductive capacity does. I do think that a certain number of men will say, why am I doing things to move myself away from women of my age? I think that there will be a swell and a crest and then an evening out. Yeah, I agree. We need to stop blaming not just each other. We need to stop blaming individuals in our lives for our problems when a lot of our problems are based on we can never afford a house. We can never afford to retire. We can't afford to survive.
We can't afford to eat a hot meal for dinner.
So my final thoughts are we need to stop being so divisive. We need to try to find places where we can come together. In the great words of Depeche Mode, people are people. So why should it be?
I think it's also like the French. We need to create systems that protect women so that there isn't a fight. I want us all to be paid the same. And I don't want that to be something that's decided on a person-to-person basis.
just because we're paid the same, like men aren't going to be paid less. The zero sum idea is an inherently harmful idea that everything that you get costs me something. My final thought is just real hippy dippy. Can't we all just get along? But like, try to see beyond, someone's knee jerk reactions and try to speak beyond that and try to have more patience for people in your life, because we all do have some worth apart from Donald J. Trump, but everybody else has some worth.
And I think to sort of link to that, we don't have third spaces in America anymore. And I think that's part of the problem. We don't have casual run-ins with people because we're all in our apartments on our phones.
If you're a person like me who is sober and who's trying not to eat all the time, if you're making plans with another human being, there's no place to go. Like, I can't have coffee. I don't drink alcohol. I don't want to
You can go to a playground and be kind of weird.
I don't have a kid. I'm not
You can
really
make it.
allowed to
You
go.
can make it weird. And go to the playground. You can go to a dog park without a dog.
Yeah, I guess nobody's going to keep me from going to the dog park without a dog. There's no space that I can go and just exist without consuming something.
Right. And I think we just don't have access. We are in a good place financially. We have less of this social unrest.
Right.
And I remember probably from a TikTok learning that every time women make strides and get more rights, the fashions of our time change so that women need to be increasingly thinner and smaller. I think that's a part of this conversation too. Like, we start holding women to unrealistic standards. Like, we're saying, oh, we want you all to be a size 0 and be in the home and do all the things. Why is it that we want that? Because if you are doing all those things, you don't have time to overthrow the government.
Financial strength has always made hemlines rise. Every time the economy is in a good place, mini skirts happen. And I think that lines up with that. Women feel more secure. They feel more free. When money is tight, skirts get longer. Women want to be covered up because conservatism happens. Like, I used to just track this because I was a weirdo with a nose ring and brightly colored hair. And I noticed that it was easier for me to get work during like tech booms and during when money is flush. And then when it tightens up again, even something like fashion and hairstyles becomes other and negative.
Right.
But that's interesting. I guess I've never thought of mini skirts as being especially body dysmorphic, especially fat shaming, because I think that everything is always fat shaming all of the time.
When women are more under the thumb of the patriarchy, it's a little bit less. The Twiggy thing happened. For anyone who's probably under 30, Twiggy was a model who looked like a boy. She was probably 98 pounds soaking wet, and she became this huge craze in the 60s. Coincidentally, when women started getting their rights.
And then we had Kate Moss in the 90s.
Exactly.
There's always a tiny little lollipop head person. Circling back to what we were talking about before, apart from revolution on the streets, the other solve is, of course, trying to raise men who understand that it doesn't hurt them for women to have rights and that they have a worth beyond their own earning capacity. I think that that's a very depressing idea. And a lot of depression, suicide, alcoholism in men is tied back to this idea that all your worth is a paycheck. You have nothing else to contribute.
Well, you're also here, don't forget, to grapple with bears.
And grapple with bears. Guys, thank you for saving us from bears.
It's the hand-to-hand combat with bears that I'm in for. So protecting women and giving them your money is all you have as your worth and value, I guess, if you're a man. This is what all of these darn feminists keep banging the drum about. Feminism is here to help all of us.
Right.
The patriarchy hurts men and women equally,
Yes.
but it's hard to see it, right? It's the same as like racism hurts all of us. Racism destroys the society for everyone. But because I am not directly being impacted by racism, it's hard for me to see that sometimes.
Yes. Misogyny and patriarchy is a toxic soup that we are all swimming in. And we all need to get out of the soup.
Somebody wrote that as a comment in one of my TikToks recently. I think it was you.
It's something that I like to say a lot. It's not helpful. It's not positive for women to feel that our only value is sexual value or our attractiveness. And it's not helpful for men to feel that their only value is financial value. We're all worth everything.
If I were a man, I wouldn't enjoy knowing that this woman has coupled and paired with me because she has no other choice, right? I was watching a show on Netflix called Bodies, which I really like, and some stuff happens, and basically it's about time travel. And this woman gains some knowledge because of time travel, where she realizes that the man that she's married and now pregnant with his child is actually an evil, horrible man, but she's living in a time period where she cannot leave him. Yeah. And so he's very, very upset because he's saying, well, I want you to love me too. I don't want you to stay with me because you have no other choice. And like,
Right.
I want that for all men. I want you to have a woman who has approached you and looked at you and assessed you and determined that you have worth and value for your humanity and loves you for who you are. I want you to have that too.
Right. Wouldn't that be nice? Like, wouldn't it be nice if men didn't wind up married to women who were only attracted to their money? And then they say, well, you only love me for my money. Well, that's the only thing you've shown me.
And you only love me for my looks. I want both of us to love each other for who we are as human beings and not because they have no other choice and because they're trying to like keep up appearances in this weird society we've built.
And that's, I think that. Laura, where can people find you on the internet?
Find me on TikTok. I am Laura Ryan. If you want to reach out to me personally, you can send me and Virginia an email at hello@mysistersatherapist.com. If you want to hire us, you can reach us at hireus@mysistersatherapist.com to speak at your women's conference, your mental health conference, your women's leadership event, your wellness event, your women's retreat, your educational seminar, your corporate retreat, or your workshop. Virginia, how can people reach you?
You know, you can reach me at my website, Badinia, BADINIA.com. That is also my TikTok. That is also my Instagram. You know, we've said it a lot of times and it hasn't always been true, but right now it is true that mysistersatherapist.com is a working website that you can go. You can find out a little bit more about us. You can also find a handy list of all of our episodes. If you want to hire me to do stand-up comedy at your women's comedy festival, at your comedy festival period stop, at your club, at a small haunted venue in Santa Cruz, California, you can reach out to me through any of those ways. Laura, this is a segment where we sometimes read a listener review. Do you have one for us this week?
I, in fact, do.
I want to take this opportunity to say how much we love it when you don't just rate us 5 stars, but also write something nice so we can read it here.
Yes, we really appreciate your reviews. If you haven't yet written one, do it. So this one is going to go to a man. The title is So Entertaining and Funny from Runner Boy 1980. I listen to this on my morning runs. Always makes me laugh and I learn a lot as well. Thank you and looking forward to many more. Thank you, Runner Boy 1980.
That's so cute. We also want to give a shout out to one of our Australian listeners who listens to us while he was repairing guitar.
Thank you, Australian listener, for bringing us to 248 in the mental health podcasts of Australia.
That's right.
And in closing, in the immortal words of Billy Ray Valentine, Capricorn, we can make it, baby.
Me and you. Bye-bye.